philosophy and we are in the lecture number 3. Yesterday we have started discussing about lecture number 3 and where he tried to explain the aphorism 3. So in the aphorism 3, the qualities of homeopathic physicians are mentioned. And this aphorism is called as a miniature of organ of medicine because everything regarding the homeopathic physician, he tried to explain over there. There are 6 knowledges which he has mentioned. The first one is knowledge of disease, indication, knowledge of medicinal power. The number 3, choice of the remedy, the medicine indicator. Number 4, the proper dose. Number 5, repetition of the dose. And number 6, obstacles in the process of recovery. And these are very essential 6 knowledges one must possess and one must develop in himself if you want to practice a real homeopathy. Out of which he started discussing about the first knowledge, and about first knowledge, the first word with which he has started, that he explains about the perceiving. Perceiving is a understanding. Perceiving is a understanding with intellect, with just a verbal or non-verbal communication. And you have to understand the feelings of the human. And that's why it matters a lot because homeopathy deals with the state of the person. Whenever one has to treat that patient, you have to understand his state, and his state you can understand, perceive. That is more important. You don't have to look toward the mm, pathology or organ or tissue change, but you have to look towards the human which is behind that pathology because you have to treat that vital principle, the human over there. And that's why he has explained over there. Hahnemann have explained very specifically the word over there that if the physician clearly perceives what is to be cured in disease. So that part we have discussed in yesterday's lecture. Let us start with the next paragraph of it, where he starts. The first thing to be considered in case is what are the curative indications in this case. So whenever a patient comes to us, what are the curative indications in the case? This is very important. What is common is not important because if patient comes to you with a pathology, liver cirrhosis, that is not a curative indication. That is the end product, ultimate of the disease, on the basis of which you will not going to find it out a remedy. Patient comes to you with ready-made diagnosis that he has renal calculi. Calculi is the end product, not a curative indication. The patient, what he presents. If he presents, doctor, I'm having very severe pain in left lumbar region and it goes towards the groin and there is some bubbling sensation and it is so severe, I cannot lie down. This is the real symptomatology with which patient is approaching. It is not the stone with which you are prescribing. You are prescribing that typical individual because he is expressing his own symptomatology, where you get the barbaris vulgaris. So this is how we have to find it out remedy, not on the basis of ultimate. And that's why he explains over there what are the curative indications in this case. What signs and symptoms call the physician's attention as curative signs and symptoms? So, which are the signs and symptoms? The physician's attention as curative signs and symptoms. So, what is that specific characteristic in the patient? How the patient approaches, what he says, how he behaves, because that is the man who is behaving, who is expressing, who is showing his presence in front of you. That's what you have to get. This means not every manifestation is curative indication. What he says? It means not every manifestation is curative indication. So if a patient comes with certain pathology, some disease, every symptom is not a curative indication because you cannot find it out remedy of each and every symptom. The results of disease occurring in the tissues in chronic diseases such as cancerous changes, tumor, etc., are of such a character that they cannot constitute curative signs. But those things which are curable, which are capable of change, which can be materially affected by the administration of the remedy, The physician must know they are the curative indication. What he is saying? He explains over there the cancerous changes, the tissue changes, the tumors. They cannot constitute the curative signs. They are not, because everyone's cancer looks cancer. But everyone's attitude towards the cancer is different because human is different. Everyone expresses his cancer in a different manner. If one patient comes and he is having his diagnosis that he is having a cancer, and you are observing him, you ask him how, oh, so what is the problem? He said, I have a cancer. So what do you feel? So doctor, I know I'm having cancer. So I have to bear it. I have to bear the suffering. Anyway, I have to go. So what do you do? No, I just lie down and keeps my eyes closed. Don't you suffer from pain? Yes, I suffer from pain. But why to? Why to argue? See, the person is taking it in a different manner. Where he closes his eyes, lies with eyes closed, and in mild form he's talking to you and he's accepting his situation, recognizes everything but cannot move in place. Rubric is there. The state is different. Here, the remedy is not based upon his cancer. Remedy is based upon his approach towards his cancer. So you have to catch how the patient presents. The second patient comes with similar diagnosis, but he's in a agony, he's in a severe stress, he's ailing with pain, all those things. These are the differences. Where one patient you can individualize with from the another only on the basis of the disease per se, not on the end product. And these things one has to understand. And that's why knowledge of disease at the same time knowledge of indications, where actually curative indications which you have to look for. The physician ought to have a well-grounded idea of government and the law to which there are no exceptions. He ought to see the cause of disease action to be from center to circumference, from the innermost of the man to his outermost. If the law and government are present, then law directs every act taking place in the human system. Every government is from center to circumference. Look at it politically. Whenever the system of central political government is not bowed to, anarchy and loss of confidence prevail. Anarchy means gondal, bebandashahi, embarrassment. So, what he is comparing it with the system of politics. Human system also works in the similar manner. There is government of human system. The central government is nothing but the vital principle, vital force, which governs whole body. If it is at disturbance, everything is at disturbance. The disease is the result. If it is in a harmony, everything is in harmony. So see, this is what one has to understand. It is like a political system. If the center is at fault, everything is at fault. So he is comparing it with it. There are also commercial centers. We must recognize London, Paris, and New York as the centers of commercial government in their different sphere. Even the spider entrenches himself in his web and governs his universe from the center. There cannot be two governments. Such would lead to the confusion. So it is in the similar manner in human being, there is only one government. As there is only one government in politics, only one government in every field. So there is only one government in human being, that is vital force. There cannot be two governments, such would lead to confusion. There is but one unit in every standard. In man, the center of government is in the cerebrum, and from it every nerve cell is governed. So he explained over there that center of government, where it is in the brain, in the cerebrum, and from there everything is maintained. From it all action takes place for good or evil. for order or disorder. From it disease begins, and from it begins the healing process. So it is the brain from where everything happens. So something happens with you, it reaches to the brain and action is provided. It is the main government with which your body works. It is not from external things that man becomes sick, but not from bacteria nor environment, but from the causes in himself. And this sentence one has to understand. This is never comes from outside. This is developed inside. It is the government which is there inside you. If it becomes faulty, if it is at the problem, then and then only the disorder develops. Bacteria enters, n number of bacteria enters in your body and they are thrown away without causing any damage to your health. There are many things which enters in your body. There is a lot of dust which goes with every inhalation with in your nose and mouth. But nothing happens because your inner government is working properly. If it disturbs, then and then these causes cause the trouble, otherwise not. So most important is that your center should be good. If the homeopath does not see this, if the homeopath does not see this, he cannot have a true perception of disease. So every homeopath must know this order that from center to periphery. The problem always happens to be there at the center, not at the periphery. The problem is at the center, expression is at the periphery. Disorder in the vital economy. Disorder in the vital economy is the primary state of affairs. And this disorder manifests itself by signs and symptoms. So what he says? Disorder in the vital economy is primary state of affairs. So whatever happens basically at the vital force, at the inner level, and this disorder manifests by signs and symptoms. So if your vital force is disturbed, if your vital principle is disturbed, it expresses externally in the form of signs and symptoms. In perceiving what is to be cured in disease, one must proceed from generals to particulars. Study disease in its most general features, not as seen upon one particular individual, but upon whole human race. See, very important thing is explained. In perceiving, so whenever you have to perceive, what is to be cured in diseases? So what exactly you have to cure? One must proceed from generals to particular. So you have to utilize the logic from generals to particular. You have to take into consideration the generals of the human being and then go to the particulars. Because particulars never defines very specifically the individuality. Generals defines the individuality. Not as seen upon study, this is in its most general features, not as seen upon one particular individual, but upon the whole human race. We will endeavor. Endeavor means to work out, prayatna karne. We will endeavor to bring this idea before the mind by taking an example, one of the acute miasms, not for purpose of diagnosis, as this is easy, but to arrange it for a therapeutic examination. Let us take an epidemic, say, of a scarlet fever or grippe. Grippe means influenza, or grippe, or measles, or cholera. If the epidemic is entirely different from anything that has hitherto appeared, hitherto means attaparent, till today, that has been hitherto appeared in its neighborhood, it is at first confusing. From the first few cases, the physician has a very vague idea of this disease, for he sees only a fragment of it and gets only the portion of symptoms. So he is explaining how to go from generals to particulars, how to apply the logic, deductive logic. Going from generals to a particular thing is called as the deductive logic. So when an epidemic starts, we'll take a simple example of a
Sir,
COVID.
voice is very low, sir.
Whenever the, just a minute. Now how it is?
Little bit.
Little bit better. Okay. Okay. So we will take example of a COVID only because COVID was the recent epidemic, and we have started with COVID. First, there were few cases of COVID which comes to you. You get little bit idea that patients were suffering from the cough, coryza, fever, body ache, and then all of a sudden there was weakness. Those were, but you never get whole idea of the COVID unless and until you observe hundreds of cases. So this is how you have to begin. You have to begin on the mass scale from general things. Then he explains, from the first few cases, the physician has very vague idea of this disease, for he sees only a fragment of it and gets only a portion of its symptoms. But the epidemic spreads, and many patients are visited, and 20 individuals have perhaps been closely observed. Now, if the physician will write down all the symptoms that have been present in each case in a schematic form, arranging the mind symptoms of the different patients under the mind and head symptoms under the head, and so on, following Hahnemann's method under head, and so on. On the following Hahnemann's method, they consider collectively will present one image as if one man had expressed all the symptoms. And in this way, he will have that particular disease in a schematic form. If he places opposite each symptom of numbering corresponding to the number of patients in which that symptoms occurred, he will find out the essential features of the epidemic. For example, 20 patients had aching in the bones, and at once he sees that that symptom is a part of this epidemic. All the patients had catarrhal affections of the eye and merely measly rash, and these also must be recorded as a pathognomic symptoms. And so, by taking the entire schema and studying it as a whole, as if one patient had experienced all the symptoms, he is able to perceive how this new disease, this contagious disease, affects the human race and each particular patient, and he is able to predicate of it what is general and what is particular. So what he is explaining how to apply the deductive logic. So how to start from general and how to go ahead to a particular. So write it down all the patients who you have examined. Write down all symptoms under specific heading, and then write it down how many patients had those symptoms. If if you have examined 20 patients and all of them, all the courier विचारतील कोण प्रेरणा दे. If all the patients comes to you and all are having the severe joint pains, then definitely that symptom is of that epidemic, because every patient has explained. But there are very few patients with whom you can get one or two symptoms. There are very few patients with whom you can get all the symptoms. On the basis of that, you can diagnose whether it is epidemic disease or not an epidemic disease. This is epidemic presentation or just a personal particular presentation. So this deductive logic you have to apply when you deal with the cases. Every new patient has a few new symptoms. He has put his own stamp on that disease. What he has explained? He has put his own stamp on that disease. So every patient, new patient, even though he is in a epidemic, he explains something new. And that is individuality of that patient. That is not a epidemic feature, but that is an individualizing feature. Those symptoms that run through all the pathognomic symptoms, means which are explaining the disease symptoms. Those which are rare are particularities of the different people. So there are two varieties of symptoms. One, pathognomic, means which are disease symptoms which you can get with each and every patient, and there are certain symptoms which are not there with each and every patient. They are there only with few of them. So those are individuality. This totality represents to the human mind as nearly as possible the nature of this sickness, and it is this nature that the therapist must have in mind. So what he is explaining? This totality represents to the human mind as nearly as possible the nature of this sickness. So every patient, whatever he is explaining characteristically, which is of his own, that represents angelic. That represents you exact remedy. As nearly as possible, the nature of his sickness, and it is in this nature that the therapist must have in the mind. So therapist must look what is characterizing, what is peculiar, what is queer, what is rare, what is strange, not the common of all. So knowledge of disease at the one side, at the same time, knowledge of curative indication, so that you can get exactly the remedy for the patient. Now let him take the next step, which is to find in general the remedies that correspond to this epidemic. By the aid of the repertory, he will write after each one of these symptoms all the remedies that have produced that symptom. Having in this way gone through the entire schema, he can then begin to eliminate the for the practical purposes, and he will see that 6 or 7 remedies run through the picture and therefore are related to the epidemic corresponding to its whole nature. This may be called the group of epidemic remedies for that particular epidemic, and with these, he will manage to cure nearly all his cases. So he explains how to approach. Now he can write down all symptoms. Then you find it out the rubrics in the repertory. Repertorize those with those rubrics. You will get a group of remedies of 5, 6 remedies. And then he explains these are the remedies which are commonly comes in that specific epidemic. But it is not a single remedy which denotes. He explains there are 4, 5 remedies. It is a group of 4, 5 remedies. This may be called the group of epidemic remedies for that particular epidemic, and with this, he will manage to cure nearly all his cases. The question now arises, which one is the remedy for each individual case? When he has to work out half dozen remedies, he can go through the mathematics and then get their individual picture so fixed in his head that he can use them successfully. Thus, he proceeds from general to particulars, and there is no other way to proceed in homeopathy. So he is explaining how to go ahead. Then he has to find it out of those 4, 5 remedies, group of 4, 5 remedies. You have to go to the Mathematica, compare the remedies, compare the patient's symptoms with those remedies, and you can get one remedy which is exactly matching to that. So here you have started with the general, then you have reduced, deducted, and then you are coming to a particular single remedy. You are using the deductive logic. And this is the only deductive logic with which you can get a right remedy, with which you can approach and find it out exact simile. And this aspect he tried to explain over there. Then what he says, thus he proceeds from generals to particulars, and there is no other way to proceed in homeopathy. He is called to a family with half a dozen patients in bed from this epidemic, and he finds a little difference in each case, so that one remedy is indicated in one patient and another remedy is in another patient. And this is how one can differentiate one remedy of one patient with another remedy with another patient, even though their suffering is same. Even though they are suffering from COVID-19, their remedies are different. There is no such thing in homeopathy. It's
administering one of these remedies to all the family because of diagnostic name. So there is no diagnostic prescription in homeopathy. Now, while one of the remedies in the epidemic group will most likely be indicated in many cases, yet if none of these should fit the patient, the physician must return to his original anamnesis to see which one of the other remedies is suitable. So if he is not finding a perfect simillimum out of these 4 5 remedies, anamnesis means he has done the analysis and came to the conclusion of 4 5 remedies. And still, if he is not satisfied with those 4 5 remedies, then what he says, then again go to his original case, find it out, rest of the remedies, and find it out which exactly suits the patient. Very rarely will a patient demand remedy not in the anamnesis. So mainly you get a remedy of that group 4 5 6. Every remedy has in itself a certain state of peculiarities that identifies it as an individual remedy. And the patient has also certain state of peculiarities that identifies him an individual patient. So the remedy is fitted to the patient. So here you have to find it out a remedy to that patient, not his disease. Here you have to catch exactly the perfect remedy, and that remedy is the patient's remedy. So there is no diagnostic prescription in homeopathy. There is a remedy which is based upon curative indications and not on the name of the disease. No remedy must be given because it is in the list. For the list has only been made as a means of facilitating the study of that epidemic. Things can only be made easy by an immense amount of hard work. And if you do the druggery किंवा drudgery म्हणजे hard work in the beginning of an epidemic, the prescribing for your cases will be rapid and you will find your remedies about cases of sickness. Make malignant cases simple. So simplify scarlet fever that classification would be impossible. Stop the course of typhoids in a week and cure the remittent fevers in a day. So he is explaining this is the way with which you have to approach. So you have to start with the general phase, then you have to go to the particular, then you have to go to the exact particular. You have to utilize the deductive reasoning, deductive logic. And this is the way with which you can reach to the right remedy and you can find it out a right prescription. So this is too important. What he is explaining is very important. He is explaining what you are finding it out over there. So knowledge of disease, comma indication, which is the thing he is explaining in thorough over there. So first quality of the homeopathic physician, which he tried to explain over there in this uh, in his lecture. So it is a big thing which we have to learn. So part of it today we have finished. Tomorrow we'll continue with the remaining part of it. So tomorrow we'll meet at the same time with remaining part of this chapter and we'll learn rest of the knowledges and along with the Dr. J.T. Kent's philosophy. So that's all for today. Thank you very much being there. If any queries are there, yes. Yesterday's lecture will be continued. lecture, Ledampal will be continued today night at 9:30. So it will be there, definitely. Okay.
Sir, can you explain, sir, this anamnesis little bit, sir?
Anamnesis means analysis. You are coming to the conclusion to a certain thing by differentiating remedies. Anamnesis is differentiation between the remedies. It is differentiating one remedy from the another remedy. Analysis, uh, in Marathi we call it as a bhedaved janna, to differentiate one person from another person. In the remedies, it is analysis of the one symptom from the another symptom, and to come to a very particular symptom, characteristic symptom. So that is what is called as an anamnesis. So differentiating different things and coming to a conclusion and understanding of that specific thing is called as an anamnesis. Ledampal, yes, I will going to teach Ledampal today evening at night, 9:30. Okay, so we'll meet at
Okay, sir. Thank you.
9:30. Thank you being there. We'll meet at 9:30.